I didn't hear about the runway from a letter. I didn't get a warning call. I didn't even get an email. I found out the moment I stepped onto my porch at sunrise and saw bright orange survey flags stabbed straight through the middle of my farm, like someone had marked my land for execution. For a second, my brain refused to accept what my eyes were seeing. My cornfield had always stretched uninterrupted to the tree line. Quiet, private, untouched. But now a jagged line cut across it, wide and deliberate, as if someone had already decided this place no longer belonged to me. I grabbed my boots and walked out, following the flags deeper into the field. The farther I went, the worse it got. Stakes, spray paint, flattened soil, fresh tire tracks from machines that had no business being here. That's when I heard the engines. Heavy engines. By the time I reached the far edge of the property, bulldozers were already lined up, idling like they were waiting for permission they never asked for. Men in reflective vests stood around drinking coffee, completely comfortable standing on land that wasn't theirs. And standing front and center, clipboard in hand, sunglasses perfectly in place, was the HOA president. She didn't look surprised to see me. She looked annoyed. I asked her what was going on. She sighed, slow and exaggerated, and told me I was holding up progress. Then she said the words that still echo in my head. "We're building a runway." I thought she was joking. I actually smiled at first. A nervous laugh slipped out before I could stop it, because the idea was so ridiculous it didn't even register as a threat. A runway, on my farm. I told her she had to be mistaken, that this was private land, that no one had asked me for permission, that whatever fantasy project the HOA dreamed up, it stopped here. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't argue. She just tilted her head and said, "The HOA approved it." That was the first red flag, because HOAs don't approve runways. They approve fence colors, mailboxes, lawn height, not aviation infrastructure. I told her again, slowly this time, that she and her contractors needed to leave immediately, that I'd call the sheriff if I had to, that I wasn't asking anymore. She smiled, a tight smile, the kind that says she already believes she's won. "Our attorneys handled everything," she said. "You're overreacting, as if bulldozers tearing through my crops was a misunderstanding." Before I could respond, one of the machines roared to life and rolled forward. Dirt churned. Soil that had fed my family for decades was crushed under steel treads like it was nothing. I told them to stop. They didn't. I called the county. No permits. No record. Confusion on the other end of the line. I called zoning. Same answer. I called environmental services. They asked me if I was sure. By the end of the day, trees were gone. Fences were ripped out. A wide scar cut through the heart of my land, straight and deliberate. The HOA president walked past me like I wasn't even there. That night, I didn't sleep. The next morning, trucks arrived carrying gravel. The third day, asphalt. That's when it stopped being a threat and became a crime. I attended the HOA emergency meeting that evening. Every seat was filled. The board sat at the front, smug and confident, like they were unveiling a new pool. They called it a private airstrip for community enhancement. They talked about property values. They talked about exclusivity. One board member even said I should feel honored that my land was part of the future. I told them they were trespassing, that they were violating federal law, that I'd shut it down myself if they didn't. The HOA president leaned forward and lowered her voice. "You don't want to fight us," she said. "This project has backing." I asked what kind of backing. She smiled again. "Powerful people." That's when I realized something important. They weren't confused. They weren't ignorant. They thought they were untouchable. By the end of the week, small planes started appearing overhead. Not landing yet, just circling, practicing, flying low enough to rattle windows and spook livestock. I recorded everything, every tail number, every low pass, every violation. The HOA sent me a cease and desist letter accusing me of interfering with community development. I didn't respond, because while they were celebrating, I was documenting. Because while they thought HOA votes overruled everything, I knew something they didn't. Runways don't belong to neighborhoods. They belong to the federal government. And every inch of asphalt they laid without authorization was digging their hole deeper. I made one phone call, not to a lawyer, not to the county, to Washington, and that's when the clock started ticking. The thing about federal investigations is they don't announce themselves. They just arrive. 2 black SUVs rolled onto my property just after dawn. No sirens, no lights, just quiet authority. Men and women stepped out with clipboards, cameras, and expressions that didn't care how expensive the HOA's lawyers were. They didn't need introductions. They already knew everything. Satellite imagery showed when construction began. Drone footage documented every phase. Recorded flight paths confirmed unauthorized use of unregistered airspace. Environmental reports detailed soil damage and protected land violations. The runway failed every safety standard. Too short, wrong orientation, no lighting, no emergency plan, no FAA registration, no environmental clearance. In other words, it was illegal from the first shovel of dirt. The inspectors walked the length of the asphalt in silence. One of them shook his head. The HOA president arrived late, heels clicking against pavement she never should have built. She tried to take control, tried to explain how this was a community initiative. Then one inspector asked her a single question. Who authorized this runway? She pointed at me. He did. That's when I stepped forward. I handed over my credentials. The color drained from her face so fast it was almost impressive. The silence that followed wasn't dramatic. It was fatal. The inspectors issued an immediate grounding order. Red tags went up. Aircraft were diverted. Notices were sent to every pilot who'd used the strip. Then came the fines, daily penalties, environmental restoration costs, trespassing damages, federal enforcement actions. Insurance companies pulled coverage within days. Homeowners panicked. Property values plummeted. The asphalt was ripped out by court order. The land was restored. The HOA president resigned. 2 board members were personally fined. Their attorneys settled quietly. And the skies over my farm went quiet again. When people ask why I didn't stop them sooner, I tell them the truth. Sometimes the fastest way to end entitlement is to let it expose itself completely, and then let the law land.